So welcome to this the webinar on cyber scams during pandemic, hosted by GCSI and Pan-Asian American Business Council and ACE. And I think, Karen, you need to unmute your thing, and so I'm going to introduce Karen Eng. Dr. Karen Eng is from ACE. And, Karen, please go ahead and say a few words about it.
Sure. Good afternoon. And for those who are celebrating this upcoming weekend, happy Diwali. So the Asian Pacific Islander American Chamber of Commerce and Entrepreneurship, National ACE, would like to express our deepest appreciation for your continued support and leadership. We value the partnership we have with the Pan-Asian American Business Council, and we look forward to working with Kazi and his members. National ACE is a nonprofit organization whose mission is to serve as a strong advocate of AAPI business interests and affect positive change on all issues that enhance and advance the goals and aspirations of AAPI business owners. For the past 6 months, we have worked closer than ever with our national network of more than 65 affiliate chambers and partners around the country to ensure that the AAPI business community has the most accurate and up-to-date information about the important resources that are available to our community during this global pandemic. We are also grateful for the partnership with AARP to provide national and local support for our affiliate chambers and partners. So since April 1st, National ACE has conducted over 68 webinars, and we have 35 future webinars planned for the rest of the year. Of the ones that we've completed, over 6,800 minority business enterprises have been served. We know the importance of cybersecurity, especially in today's environment, and we look forward to today's presentation. If your business is in need of one-on-one consulting or other resources, please contact us through our website at acesmallbusiness.org. All of our services are free of charge, and we are here to help. So again, thank you for having us on the call today, and best of discussions. So I look forward to it. Thanks, Kazi. Back to you.
Yeah, thanks. So I want to introduce our moderator for the panel, Sean Kelly, Vice President and CTO of Meetings and Events International. So Sean, it's all yours.
Okay, thank you. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks again for joining. I've been involved with these events on a number of occasions, and I always love these events. So hopefully everyone enjoys the topic today. So I think what we're going to do is start with some introductions of the panel. We have a good panel here that can provide a lot of different perspectives and expertise for everyone. So, but as Kasi said, just really quick on myself, yeah, I'm the head of technology for MEI here, which is a managed service provider and RegTech firm here in Chicago. Prior to that, I was a department CIO at the state of Illinois for a couple of years, and then prior to that, I held a number of roles in the consulting world and IT leadership. So I will go ahead and ask Kevin to introduce himself.
Sean, before you do that, could you please turn off your blinds behind you?
Oh,
yeah,
it's yeah, sure.
You can't see your face.
Okay, hold on. Yeah. That actually wasn't really light coming in. It's angels actually follow me around, in case anyone was wondering. So, Kevin, do you want to kick us off?
Yeah, so I lean over so you can see the angels behind me. There you go. Yeah. Well, hello, everyone. Good afternoon. I'm Kevin McDermott. I'm currently the Chief Technology Officer for the Cook County Clerk's Office. The Clerk's Office is responsible for several things. The most visible one is we run elections in suburban Cook County. We also figure out, for those who own property in Cook County, we figure out what your property tax bill says. And then we also handle vital records, and we're about to take on the duties of the recorder of deeds as well. So a bunch of different stuff that we do. And my background is varied. I've worked in manufacturing, I've worked in the banking and finance industry, I've worked in the convention and trade show business, I've been in the medical industry. So I've had a lot of experience in a lot of different areas. And this one now is actually one of the most interesting because, as you guys all know, elections are a hot topic. And so it's been interesting to look at or interesting and scary at the same time, to look at what is the cybersecurity threat environment around elections. But we'll get to that in a minute. So basically that's my background, and I'll pass the torch.
All right, Maurice.
Sure, I'm the director for the Center for Cybersecurity and Forensic Education at Illinois Institute of Technology. I'm also an assistant professor of information technology and management. I've been in academia for 8 years, and before entering academia, I was in defense and aerospace, and also served in the armed forces, cryptography, and cybersecurity.
Excellent. And Ray.
Hi, I'm Ray Trygstad, and I am the Associate Chair of the Department of Information Technology and Management at Illinois Tech. I'm also the Associate Director of the Center for Cybersecurity and Forensics Education. I've been, my first experience in cybersecurity was way back in 1987 when I was the Information System Security Officer for one of the largest aviation training squadrons in the Navy. I was a helicopter pilot and served in the Navy for 21 years. And I've been at Illinois Tech since 1992, where I occupied a series of professional IT roles until we made IT an academic discipline. And then I switched over and became an academic. So I'm very pleased to be here today to talk about all this and all that's involved. I'm going to take a few moments here because Kazi told me I could do this, and let folks know about what we have at Illinois Tech in the way of programs in cybersecurity. We have a multitude of degrees across 3 different departments within the university. We have the bulk of them in our department, and we are the department that holds a designation as the National Center of Academic Excellence in Cyber Defense Education. In fact, Mo is working on our next submission for that right now. And we have a bachelor's degree in a Bachelor of Science in Applied Cybersecurity and Information Technology. We have a professional master's in cybersecurity and forensics, and we have a Master of Science in Applied Cybersecurity and Digital Forensics. In addition to that, the Computer Science Department has a professional master's in cybersecurity, quite a different focus from ours. We also have a professional master's in cybersecurity engineering, and the Computer Engineering Department also offers a bachelor's degree in computer engineering and cybersecurity as well. So we have a fair number of programs. Some of those programs, for example, our professional masters in cybersecurity can be completed entirely online. So that's certainly appealing in today's world. We also offer certificates, both for credit certificates in the graduate area, and not for credit certificates through our university professional learning office. So we have a lot of opportunities for folks who do want to maybe make a transition into cybersecurity as a career. A lot of people in IT have a lot of experience, but may not have any kind of formal credentialing. And not surprisingly, we believe that a degree is the best credential you can have in a field. So that's one of the things that we're focused on. Now I'll give it back to Sean, and we can continue.
All right. Well, thank you for that. So as everyone knows, that we wanted to cover a very relevant topic today. We're calling it cybersecurity scams during a pandemic. Perhaps what you'll find is that in general, we're covering cybersecurity scams, and and some of that is heightened because of the pandemic, but a lot of it was there already. So in general, the quick agenda is we'll start by giving a going into a little bit of an overview of the threat landscape. So we'll have each of our panelists kind of comment on that, and then we'll get into all kinds of different examples that everyone has either seen personally or witnessed, and then finally we'll kind of get into, as we look to close out, we'll get into action items and things that people can take away from the conversation. So that's in general the agenda we're going for, and we'll end with some Q&A as well. So with that, let's jump into the threat landscape. There doesn't have to be any particular order. It doesn't have to be in the order that I introduced you guys. So just for the sake of mixing it up, Maurice, do you want to jump in and give us your take on the latest and greatest around the threat landscape?
Sure, latest and greatest. So it's the threat landscape deals with a number of things, and when you think about the environment you're operating in, you have to think about the threats that are potentially there, right? And so if you're at home, the threat landscape will be very different because now you're thinking about the home products that are associated within your system. And if you have children and these young kids, they love their connected devices. My children like the Bluetooth everything, Bluetooth toothbrush tool to all these other mobile apps that allow them to play various games and stuff like that. So when these are connected to the network, the threat environment or the threat landscape has changed because now I have to think about, okay, I add another device. Is this device secure? Is it left open? Do I have to worry about it? Maybe using particular ports it doesn't need to use. And same thing with mobile devices and stuff like that. So what one has to consider is how is the threat landscape, how is the actual environment baselined, and any type of new device going in and out, how does that alter the threat landscape?
Okay, great. Ray, you have anything to comment or add on to that?
Certainly. We're here today principally to talk about cybersecurity scams, but it's worth mentioning also that the increase in cyber attacks during the COVID situation has been enormous. The FBI reported recently that there was an increase in reports of cyber attacks to their cyber division of as many as 4,000 a day. It's a 400% increase than what was normally reported before we all started staying in place for COVID. A couple of reasons behind that. It's kind of fun to think about why that is. One is now we got all these hackers who don't have anything else to do. Okay, so they're at home, they're not going anywhere. So what are we going to do? Oh, well, let's mount some attacks. But it's also interesting because there's a lot in the cyber threat landscape that is in the form of scams. A lot of people are sending out emails. Phishing emails are a serious issue. And the phishing emails, many times they will present themselves as emails from, for example, the county health agency, and say, oh, important information, please click on the attachment. And the attachment, of course, is a payload that compromises their computer. Or a big one that's we've seen a lot of, and this was well reported, is that a lot of folks have impersonated Zoom and sent emails out saying, oh, there's an issue with your setup from Zoom. You need to go to this website and give us this information to help us troubleshoot. There's been issues with a lot of impersonation in email of people impersonating Google, same thing, and going, oh yeah, there's issues with your Google Meet. You need to go to this site and put in your Google password so we can re-enable your Google Meet. And these are the scams that have risen out of the fact that so many of us have migrated from working in an office every day and meeting and talking to people face to face to working in their easy chair at home, which is where I am. You can't see because I have my really nice IIT background behind me, but it's a real difference in the environment in which people are working, and it leaves people considerably more open to scams than they were in the past, because a lot of people who were not really technologically competent or aware now find that they're working from home in an environment that they're just not accustomed to. My wife actually decided that working from home was a little bit better idea for right now. And she's only working, she's trying to fill out her quarters for Social Security. We don't trust necessarily that they're going to give spouse Social Security benefits down the line. So she's trying to fill out her quarters. And she is currently working as a COVID contact tracer, which means she's on a computer 8 hours a day. And this was not something she had ever done in the past, not this depth of exposure. And so she is exactly the kind of party that might fall prey to a lot of these scams. She's not going to, because she's my wife. And she will ask me, but that's just not something that a lot of people have available to them, you know? So that's my take. That's what I see as it's just the huge proliferation of people living, working in an environment that they're not accustomed to, and all of the many things that those who are canny can do to fake people out and convince them to do things that they just flat shouldn't be doing. That's my take.
Yeah, and you know, one along the lines of phishing scams, just to demonstrate how sophisticated they're getting for everyone, because you talked about phishing scams quite a bit there. They're getting very personalized, and that's the intent, because they want you to think, whoever's running those scams, they want you to think that what they're telling you is truthful, and that whatever they're trying to get out of you, you will do, because it seems real. And so a thing that's happened with me personally is I got a phishing scam to my Gmail, not even to some other account. It came to my Gmail, and it made reference to a password that I used to use on another site, and that site had been hacked. It was like a site that I used to create presentations. It's like a competing product to PowerPoint, and I went out there at some point and I created an ID and a password. It seemed pretty mundane, and 4 years later, I'm getting an email scam or phishing attempt, and they're saying that they know my password, and they showed the password that I had used to hack into that site. Now, luckily, I didn't replicate that password across many sites, so it didn't get them anywhere. And I knew that. But if you get that and it's personalized to you, and you knew that that thing was a thing that you have used before, it could seem very real. And that's part of the scariness of what's going on, where it's because some of these attacks are becoming so targeted and personalized to the individual that it can be difficult to tell the difference. So I'm sure we can all tell give lots of examples like that. But since you were really double clicked on phishing scams, that seemed very relevant. So, okay, Kevin, you're still in government. I had some experience in government. Loved my experience in government, but I will admit, working in government is the place out of all the organizations I've been a part of where the absolute most attacks and phishing attempts occur that I've ever seen in my career. So what's your take on the threat landscape?
Well, we actually, first I want to say, in terms of personal experience, yeah, I had John, I had the same experience where somebody sent me my login ID and a password that I had not used in years.
Yeah.
And I know where they got it from. I know what site got hacked, but it's the same thing. It's like, hey, here's your password. We know what it is, and we're watching you. It's like, I know I had discarded that password.
Send us some Bitcoin or something.
Send us some Bitcoin, right? And it's like, no, I'm not doing that. But as a word of caution to everybody who's watching this, about a year and a half, maybe 2 years ago, I did actually fall victim to an Amazon scam because I just ordered some things, and I got an email saying, there's some issue with your order, and click here, and I clicked there, and as soon as I clicked there, I thought, oh no, I've been had. So I quickly logged into the real Amazon and changed my login credentials before anything else could happen. So it was a quick recognition, but I had already clicked, right? And so, I'm in the business. I should know better. And still, if it's clever enough and it catches you at just the right moment and you're off guard, it can happen to anybody. So everyone should be really attuned to this. But anyway, I want to talk a little bit more broadly about kind of the motivation, what the threat landscape. There's really, in my mind at least, there are kind of four reasons why attacks happen. One is theft. People want something you have. Another is disruption. You just want to mess with whatever is going on. And I like, for example, I think theft doesn't need any more explanation, but in disruption, if you guys recall from a number of years ago now, when the US and the Israeli intelligence sent the Stuxnet virus into the Iranian nuclear research facility at Natanz, that was aimed at disruption, actually physical destruction as well. So that's one reason why people will attack. So they might be after something you've got, they might be trying to disrupt or destroy something. They might be after manipulation. You know, I'm in the elections world. And so why would someone attack us? Well, they might want to manipulate our voter registration database or our voter tally system. That's manipulation. So those three categories. And the last one, the one I lie awake worrying about most, is ransomware. People are going to hold you hostage because they want you to pay money. And ransomware is, I think everyone on our panel will agree, is probably the most pernicious and the quickest growing threat that's out there. And anybody, like I was trying to explain this to the elected official in my area just about a month or two ago. And I remember she said, gee, I keep hearing about this ransomware. What is that? And I thought, you know, I'm in the business, so I think of it all the time. It's like, how can you not know what this is? But if you're not in the business, you may not know. So just very quickly, ransomware is someone breaks in, encrypts your vital data, and demands a ransom before you get it back, usually in the form of Bitcoin or some sort of cyber currency. So I would say those are the four big areas that I think we need to be thinking about. And if you're thinking about, well, what's my own vulnerability? Well, think about it. Do you have something someone wants to steal? Do you have someone out there who might want to just simply disrupt what you do for whatever reason? In my case with elections, there's obvious reasons why people would want to disrupt that. Do you have any reason why people would want to manipulate the information that you have? And Sean, you'd say particularly in government, that's really a real threat in government because we're the keepers of lots of vital information. And then lastly, you know, is this ransomware threat, which is very real and very expensive. So those would be the four areas that I would categorize as the general threat landscape.
Let's dive into some examples. Along the lines of disruption, I know one of the things I was worried about in anytime you have a presidential election year, it seems like every 4 years, the disruption campaigns, the misinformation campaigns are really ramping up. But in 2016 was just bananas how much disinformation and misinformation was spread around. I have to admit, I was a bit happy to see that 2020 wasn't as bad, but disinformation still is certainly out there, and as a form of disruption. So maybe Kevin, you had highlighted that as a thing that you wanted to go into a little bit more. Maybe you can take us a little bit deeper in terms of the disinformation campaigns that you've seen.
Yeah, and I would say, you know, disruption, well, cybersecurity generally, I mean, I think, and I've fallen victim of this as well, you think of it in terms of protecting our computer systems, our networks, and that certainly is very important. But, you know, Sean, as you mentioned, disinformation, that doesn't actually affect our systems, but it definitely affects our behavior. And I know coming from the elections world, we got phone scams that were, I don't think the robot knew it was calling the clerk's office, but it would call us and say, you know, the election day has been moved from November 3rd to November 4th. Please don't go out and vote on the 3rd, it's been moved to the 4th, right? I mean, that's a disinformation campaign. It has nothing to do with our networks. You know, there's no cybersecurity software we can put up that would prevent that, but it's it is an element of disruption. So disruption can come in several forms. You know, someone could break into our system, for example, and try to destroy our voter registration database, which would have been disruptive on election day, trying to check people in to vote. Or disruption can come in the form of this kind of disinformation that's just trying to affect people's behavior. and try to get them to do something that they shouldn't do, or they can do something else instead of what they should do. So those kinds of areas are very disruptive to a process. And if anybody in the audience, if you've got a process that can be disrupted, it's useful to think about, it's useful to put yourself in the attacker's shoes. You know, how would I disrupt the process I'm responsible for? How would I do it? Well, if you can figure it out, someone else can. So I would think disruption is something everyone should be thinking about. It does not have to be an attack on your physical network. It can be this outside social media kind of disruption that can still be very, very damaging.
Maurice, I know you had a number of good examples that you wanted to highlight for people. You've talked about unemployment scams, phishing scams, romance scams. Maybe you want to dive into a couple of those and kind of give some examples.
Sure. I'll piggyback what was just said before I jump fully into romance scams or these other scams. When you think about the previous election, the largest Black Lives Matter group was actually controlled by Russians. And part of that, they actually were able to get people preparing for, there was like a civil war. So they actually had a group of individuals that were training people on the assumption that there would be some type of race civil war here in the United States of America. So, you know, when you talk about disruption, you know, with all these social media platforms and how people go to these news sites that are not trustworthy, or they haven't been, their news hasn't been validated, then it's easy to cause that. So Russia has a process called active measures, and where they don't pull out, they don't put things that are completely fake out there, but it's like a half truth. So even if it's discovered, well, part of it's true, so why isn't the other part of it true? And so that is a technique that they've done over the years. Now, at this particular time, a lot of us are staying home. There's no contact with people. For those that are single, you know, no kids, something like that, you have no one. So now you are making friends with people online. And this particular period would allow for someone to take advantage of you. So you have people here in the States doing romance scams, people overseas. And previously it was targeted mainly at older individuals. But now, due to everyone being in the same situation, the actual, I guess you could say, the landscape has changed, and they're targeting numerous people based upon people are unable to go anywhere because they're locked down. So that is a big issue. And then when we talked about finding out personal stuff about people, in this country, a lot of information it's open access. So when I lived in the state of Iowa, when you got married or divorced, it was a public record. So you could go through a database that this person's been divorced. I'm going to look up this person. I know they're in this city, this county, and then I'm going to search this person. Okay, there's a house purchase. So this house belongs to them. So, and then there's other sites that you can correlate information and say, oh, well, the average income in this neighborhood is, you know, $100,000. Perfect. This is my target.
Yeah, and you're right. Especially during a pandemic, people are leveraging digital tools, digital mechanisms for any number of things, including dating. So that's where you get to some of those romance, you know, scams.
Yeah, I mean, because these are cyber, you know, these are cyber attacks, but it's also like a mix of intelligence and also psychological warfare. It's like all mixed together, and you know that is very potent.
Yeah, for sure. Now, another one that you've talked about, and this is especially relevant, of course, during a pandemic, is unemployment scams. And obviously, because unfortunately people have lost work during this time, that has become a thing that bad actors have taken advantage of. So maybe you want to talk about that too.
Sure. So a number of states were not prepared for COVID. We just weren't prepared. So what that meant was when people were losing jobs at a quick rate, the country and at the state level had to do something to help people stay afloat. So what they did is they created these systems to actually give people funds to a system. So what that meant was that you have a system now that was not scalable, is now being, you know, overran, you know, because you have all these requests going on. They're trying to help people. And this is the time where individuals, bad actors, can take advantage of the system or the broken process. And so in our state, we had a number of that where individuals were claiming unemployment funds for people that were still working.
Yeah, for sure. Well, those are all great examples. You've also highlighted a couple of some key phishing scam examples too. And I know Kevin just talked about phishing, but I wonder if you have one or two really either interesting ones or well dispersed ones that you would highlight on.
Yeah, so I think one of the interesting ones that I generally mention is the Friend Finder network. Approximately 412 accounts, 412 million accounts were exposed. And when this occurred, it was, .mil, .gov. These were government and military email addresses associated. And what was interesting, you saw a lot of the same passwords used constantly, right, amongst various individuals. Now, this particular site is for someone that wants to have an extramarital affair or something like that. So you have this site, you have this breach, and these individuals have their items breached, but this allows them to be, blackmailed, because there was also other breaches at the same period, right? So you have one breach, you say, okay, it's not bad, but you have another breach that you can correlate information and say, all right, well, based upon this, I can say you've done X, Y, and Z. And the other item that got breached was the airlines. So you can say, all right, well, yeah, I did have a conversation on the site, but I've never seen the person. But then there is the airline data, and the airline data says, well, a ticket was purchased by you and by this person. You obviously did see this person off this particular site. And so now you can have the worry, because say that person is military, they could lose their rank. So they're maybe a 1-star general. Well, they'll get deducted a rank for I guess, bad behavior or poor leadership in terms of what they're doing in their personal life. That's something as well. In other states, they could lose a lot of money in terms of a divorce. So you have this item, and people are saying, all right, well, I won't give you the information because now it's not ransom, it's blackmail. I just need to know what type of where you're buying your service from. That's what we just want that, and we'll leave you alone. And you can say, all right, well, you just want this where we purchase our service from. Okay, no big deal. But now you've given that information, and now that actor could start reviewing attacks on that particular device, knowing that your organization uses that device within your system.
Right. It just takes one little piece of information. Yeah, for somebody to try to take advantage of it, for sure.
Yeah. One of the other things that has been interesting, since I have 3 younger kids, 3 really young kids, but my oldest, she loves playing Minecraft and Roblox, and on one of they have like this scenario where an individual, there's like 2 people in the team, and they're supposed to pick off the rest of the team. We found out because we were in the room and we were listening in, and tell my daughter, hey, if something sounds weird, come and talk to us. And within that roadblocks, there was individuals asking people, hey, let's go off this platform and talk, or they'll ask questions that are personal about the child. Oh, okay, what type of house do you stay in? Oh, where do you live at? And again, this is a game, this is a child's game, but you have individuals that masquerade as other players to get information through the kids, because people go towards the weakest link.
Yeah, for sure, no doubt. So all fantastic examples. Thank you for that. And I mean, all of you guys could go on and on and on. I mean, we have only a limited amount of time here, but
well, Sean, one other thing I want to add is actually a little bit of field from the romance scam. Still, I've seen my share of those as well. Is the idea of when we talk about fake news, there is such a thing as fake news, and what happens is that some of these more sophisticated fake news purveyors, foreign governments or even people locally, will create literally fake news sites, and it will be something like the Chicago Neighborhood Observer, and it sounds like a real newspaper, but it isn't. And so the stories that are then posted are completely made up. But again, with all this stuff, there's enough grain of truth that makes it sound plausible. And because it comes from what seems to be a news source, it seems credible. Well, then, the trolls will go out and send out troll messages citing this, Chicago Neighborhood Observer. And people will get the Twitter messages or the emails or whatever else. They look and say, oh, well, yeah, it's coming from a news source. Yeah, it's the Chicago Neighborhood Observer. It must be legitimate. When in fact, the basis of it is phony. So that's something I think everyone else should be aware of as well, that there is this campaign to create literally fake news sites and then present them as truth. And so when people are looking at this stuff, and if there's a citation and it's not from some publication you recognize, check it out. It may well be just phony.
Yep.
Yeah,
no doubt.
One of the things that is also interesting is that a number of actual news sites are state sponsored, like RT, like Russia TV.
Yeah. Right.
Like Al Jazeera. So they now have to state underneath, like, this is funded by the Qatari government, or this is funded by the Russian government. So that's something that has happened that is new, but before it didn't happen. So you would hear news from a particular news organization, like, oh, it looks real. You have no clue what RT means. Most people don't. And they're like, oh, well, this is what's going on in our country. Yeah, there's a problem. But at the same time, it's like, this is Russian. This has been determined as been Russian propaganda. So these are things you think about as well. And the average person is not considering these things. A lot of people, they don't have time to do these things. I do because it's my job, but if it wasn't my job, would I have time? Like, okay, let me look up every news organization, who owns what, is it state sponsored, how many donors are, people don't have time for that. And that's one of the issues, is that there's limited time to truly feel secure in everything that we do. And so we have to trust some sources willingly. So if it looks legit, people will trust it.
Yep.
Mo, you beat me to it. My wife is a serious channel surfer, so she'll be surfing down through the channels, and as she goes by the news channels, something will catch her eye, and she'll stop and watch it. And I'm like, "Dear, why are you watching that?" She goes, "Well, it looked interesting." And I said, "Who is that station?" "Well, it says RT." Yeah, that's. I don't know what it stands for officially, but in real life, that stands for Russian television.
Actually, I think it's Russia Today. I think the official name is Russia Today. Yeah.
Is it really? Okay, well, Russia Today.
It is.
I mean, but they minimize their connection to Russia. You know, if you aren't careful, you might never pick up on the fact that here is a news outlet that's all people that are speak English just as though they're Americans, because many of them are. They've been hired by the network, and they have basically a string of disinformation coming out of there. I think it's my turn, so I was going to talk about some other things.
Yeah, it is your turn. I was just about to say, you've got some great examples too.
Yeah, you know, there's product scams are real interesting, and because people couldn't go out and shop, people fall prey to product scams, and there are all kinds of these scams that are out there. And I noticed a lot of them popping up in Facebook. One of the ways that a lot of people turned to maintain human contact was through Facebook. So a lot of people spent probably considerably more time on Facebook during the pandemic than they might have previously. I can speak for myself. My daughter has not lived at home since she left for college, and I have a grandson, and I like to see my grandson, you know, so I spend a little more time keeping track of what she's up to on Facebook. And I noticed these things popping up. A couple of them were interesting. One of them was, and a lot of them directly relate to the fact that, hey, now people at home, they're making considerably greater use of their computer than they have in the past. And, you know, this notebook computer that I bought with a 256 gig card on it, you know, a SSD, that looked really good, but now I'm running out of space. What do I do? So you see on Facebook, oh, look, here's a 2 terabyte flash drive. This really cool, smooth, little looking 2 terabyte flash drive, and they're going to sell it to you for $60, you know. Oh my gosh, what a deal. You know, I can add 2 terabytes of storage to my system for $60. Well, there was a time where there were, honest to God, there were probably 40 different sites advertising on Facebook with these 2 terabyte flash drives. Well, they were fraudulent. They weren't 2 terabytes. You know, they had faked programming on the storage device itself that would say there were 2 terabytes, but who knows what was there, you know? There might have only been, you know, or 32 gigs, and it would tell you 2 terabytes, and you start copying to it, and guess what? It dies because you've tried to copy more to it than it's capable of actually holding, or your copies fail and you think, oh, it's defective, but you try to send it back to the people. Nope, you're not going to get your money back. A lot of folks started shopping online for things they'd never bought before. One of the things that people were buying, personal protective equipment. People who were going to sell you, you know, the medical grade face masks. And there was again a whole slew of sites that popped up that would sell you medical grade face masks. A lot of them didn't even advertise anywhere. They just you know, put things in places enough that they would pop up on the search engine. So you do a search, it would pop up, and they'd be in a lot of blogs, not advertising, but a lot of things that would raise their visibility in the search engines. They would pop up. You'd plot down, you know, X number of dollars for a package of surgical grade face masks, and you'd never get them. Nothing would ever happen. And you go to get your money back, and oh, well, you know, somehow they never respond to you when you try to get your money back. And a lot of these sites would actually be there for a limited duration, and then they would change their domain name, they would change their brand, and just move to a new site. That way they eliminated the possibility that all these people would want their money back because, hey, the site doesn't even exist anymore. So there were a lot of these rotating website scams. It's remarkable. The number of people
Ray, you've
sit
also
around and think, what are some new ways I can take money from people?
Yeah. One other great example you've talked about is some of the ransomware attacks. And I think you talked about the World Health Organization, like using legitimate organizations as another way to get people to trust what's happening, even though they shouldn't, right?
Absolutely. There was a slew of, I guess we still call them phishing emails, but instead of trying to get you to go to a website, they're trying to get you to click on an attachment. And they came from organizations that appeared to be entirely reputable. The World Health Organization, and for real canny attackers, some of them actually came from your county health department. Okay, who's not going to trust their county health department? I mean, that's who my wife, who's a COVID contact tracer, works for. She works for the county health department, and you know, that's who would be contacting you if there was an issue. And they'll say, you know, they would craft a very carefully worded message and say, here's critical information that you need to be aware of. Please click on the attachment to this. It will provide you with this information. And what it would actually do would compromise your computer. For there may be folks here that are pretty canny with what's available from ransomware, but a lot of home users, they'd never seen ransomware before, you know, and so they would click on these payloads, and now they get a thing coming up and saying, well, you have to give us, you know, X amount of dollars, or we're gonna never let you use your computer again, or even worse, we're gonna release all your photos to somebody. And there are probably a fair number of people that have photos on their computers that they're just not real keen on other folks seeing. So, you know, they can do this. And traditionally, ransomware against businesses wants Bitcoin payment, but ransomware at the personal level like this, what they would ask you to do would be to purchase a gift card and give them the number and information so they can make use of that gift card, because that's low level. That's something anybody can do. You can walk into Jewel and buy a gift card, and then you go back and you give these people the gift card, and who knows, they may or may not release your computer. There's really no way to tell. The other thing that is very common, it's not just ransomware, but people making use of the COVID situation to, again, get you to click on a payload that would compromise your computer and now make it part of a botnet. There's a lot of organized crime that, believe it or not, they make money by selling time on botnets. And botnets are, in many cases, people's home computer that's been compromised and has become part of this network that's used to mount attacks and to do all kinds of things, to use computer time to crack passwords. There's all kinds of uses for these botnets. A lot of them are actually run by organized crime in the Soviet Union. Some of these not Soviet Union, now Russia, I'm sorry. I was in the Navy and I was fighting the Cold War for too long. I have to get used to Russia. But they're in Russia, and some of these organized crime rings that run botnets are so big and so prominent, they have their own Wikipedia entries. So
All right.
these are threats that people have just never encountered before, and they have to be aware of them.
I want to just take a few minutes and see if each of the panelists can talk about one or two key things that people can do, action items they can take now, coming out of this conversation. So I'll
Sure.
open the floor. Who
Let
would
me-
like to start?
Let me go for that one first.
Okay.
The first thing I recommend people do is don't just have backup. I mean, most of them, it's hard to believe, but there are people who still don't back up their files on their home computers or even small business computers. But more importantly, have backup that's not connected to your network or to your machine. So for example, if you're at home and you got an extra hard drive, plug in the hard drive, make the backup and unplug it. Because ransomware, the smart ransomware, is going to come into your machine and it's going to find anything that's attached to it. So if you have a backup drive or backup system, the smart ransomware is going to find that and it's going to encrypt that as well. So to be safe from these things, you really need what we call non-network connected or just disconnected storage, some storage that's not normally connected to your computer. So that's my advice to everyone.
Great. Ray, Maurice?
Let me hop in. If you're a business that has people working from home and they're dealing with your business working from home, you have to do several things. First of all, you have to ensure that you secure your connection to them. A lot of businesses are not accustomed to the concept of working from home, so they may never have constructed a virtual private network that allows people working from home to work privately with the company that they're working with. And you have to be careful because even a virtual private network might not be sufficient protection. I once was playing with some remote access software, and I put in the wrong IP address. I was one number off in the IP address, and I actually accessed somebody's computer. This was well before the pandemic. Somebody's computer who was working at home, and they had a VPN on that computer, but they also had a remote access backdoor that the IT people from their company had put in there so they could access the system to help them if they ran into a problem. And I thought for a while, how do I tell this person? But I couldn't think of a way of notifying them without compromising myself, you know? I could even take over their mouse and keyboard. I could have typed them a message, which would have been a little scary. So it's, first of all, you need to ensure that you secure your employees. Second of all, if you have employees working from home, you need to educate them about all the things that we've been discussing today, okay? Because Sean made a good point. People just don't know, okay? And they need to. They need to be educated about all of the many things that could happen to allow people to take advantage of them as they're working in this new situation that they've never been a part of before. And I'll turn it over to Mo.
Sure. So if I can think of three things that would help out a lot. The first thing would be like strong authentication. So when you have authentication, it's something you have, something you know, and something you are. So anyone, I believe, can easily break one of those three, right? Like for myself, I on my one device, my mobile device, I just had my thumbprint and my thumbprint as a particular method of like opening my phone. My daughter, I told her, no, you cannot buy this. She was able to unlock my phone and go to Amazon. So what does that mean? It's like, okay, wow, this is my daughter. So if someone's near you, then that particular authentication method means nothing. So 2 out of the 3. Also, using cryptography. You don't have to encrypt the whole hard drive, but perhaps the actual files that are on your hard drive, or like for me in your home folder, right? If you're gonna put something out in the cloud, encrypt those files before you put them out there. In the event that particular server that is elsewhere gets taken over, because generally when you're using the cloud, your information is replicated across multiple servers and for disaster recovery and business continuity. So you have those key items. And then the last item I would say is like organizations that have, pretty much right now, everybody working at home, have a baseline set of cybersecurity standards that everyone has to comply with before allowing them to join your network, right? So if you're going to say strong authentication, then all these people need to have strong authentication for being allowed access. and then check periodically. It's like, okay, well, Mo's no longer using two-factor authentication. Yeah, we need to revoke its access, and my access is revoked. Same thing. If they allow only certain amount of ports to be used while on the network, then that's something that needs to be done as well. Because you don't want somebody running like a Nmap or a Zenmap scan and discovering everything on a network because you yourself are wide open.
Great. Those are all fantastic. All right. Well, Cassie, I believe for the last few minutes, we want to open the floor and take questions. Is that right?
I do see one question here that says, any AI programs or apps that can scan scams to automatically call them out, put them into a folder like spam and junk? I wish there was. There may not be. So, that's, yeah. I don't think any of you guys know of anything like that?
Well, I mean, it depends on what people are really trying to accomplish. I mean, there's no end of different varieties of cybersecurity software out there. I don't know of something that's so intelligent that, like a spam collector, it recognizes every attack and segregates it out and puts it in its own little folder. I don't know of anything that does that, but there are any number of programs out there that will screen, like email filtering programs that will screen things coming in. I know Cook County uses several layers there. There are programs you can get that prevent what's known as lateral movement. So even if a hacker gets into your system, if it doesn't have authentication to get to a server elsewhere, it can't do it because this software will prevent lateral movement within your network. So there are any number of variants. And what I would recommend to people is, if you're looking for software, first find a good consultant who specializes in this, and work with that firm or that person to figure out what is your vulnerability, what is your risk tolerance, and how do we approach that.
It looks like Tom has a question.
Hi, Sean. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I know we have some students on the call. I'd like to hear what advice the panelists have for them to become more cyber aware in their studies.
For one, you can come to Illinois Tech. That's one, but there's a number of roles. So if you go to cyberseek.org, then it's the National Initiative on Cybersecurity Education. They've broken out various cybersecurity roles per the workforce, right? If you're going to protect and defend, if you're going to, investigation, analysis. So there's various roles. You got to think about, like, what do you want to do? Do you want to be someone who is a white hack or ethical hacker? Well, if you're doing that, then you need to focus on understanding like scripting, network, of course, certifications like the Certified Ethical Hacker. And it just depends on like also what industry. If you do Department of Defense, you need to be DoD 8570 or 81 forwarding in terms of certifications, and preference is given to those that go to NSA CAEs. If you're going to go to commercial, maybe you're going to do they have the ISO lead auditor and implementer. You might want to look at those. It really depends on what particular job role or function, and then what is your target industry. But due to time, if you would like to ask more, feel free to email me, mdawson2@gmail.com. I'll type it in here, and then I'll be more than happy to talk with you offline to see exactly what would you like to do, or more specific advice. So I published a number of papers and book chapters on this particular item, whether it's women, other designated minorities, U.S. citizens, and those in other countries, including Saudi Arabia, what individuals need to do for cybersecurity education.
And Cassie, I know we're at time now. Do we want to?
Yeah, there is one question. Yeah, there is one question. What qualifications or certifications to look for in hiring security consultants? This is a question from Naro.
Yeah, that's a good one, because the major problem, I think, is that everyone wants the certified information system security professional. That's outrageous, because it's not a junior level certification. I think that you need to look at a number of certifications, whether it's entry, intermediate, advanced, expert, and then also look at your pay scale on which you're willing to actually compensate this individual. So that is really important. You got to realize now there's over half a million cybersecurity openings, and there's not enough workforce to actually fill those. And so you will be competing with other organizations. But I say, you know, at least an undergraduate degree, whether it's IT, computer science, if you're going to do more analysis, development, if they're going to do more like, you can look at process improvement for cyber. So it really depends on what type of role. But if you're talking about a regular consultant, Security Plus should be okay, a bachelor should be okay, and perhaps an internship or some experience or working on a various project that they implemented cybersecurity controls like the NIST 853. That should be okay for a starting fresh consultant. If they're a senior level, I would say something like the CSSP would be more appropriate.
Yeah, it's all about the role as to what they need to be certified for. You know, when you say cybersecurity consultant, that's a little too broad. One of the problems that we run into is we have a lot of folks who use a lot of very broad terms that mean 10,000 different things. If you went to look for a job on jobs.gov, the US government job site, you would believe that every cybersecurity professional working for the US government is a cybersecurity analyst, because it's the only job title they list for any cybersecurity jobs that they have open. But not surprisingly, those people filling that job are occupying a great variety of roles within the organization. So if you need somebody who is, for example, a penetration tester, there are several good certifications in penetration testing. You know, and the EC Council has one. CompTIA has a penetration testing certification, and that would be the particular certification you would look for in that particular instance. The certification really needs to be specific to the role for which you are going to engage that, even if it's a consultant, the role for which you are going to engage that consultant. If it's a general, if you want to hire a consultant to build cybersecurity in your firm, you probably need one of those senior level certifications like CISSP or CISM. You know, some of the things that would be that would indicate a very both broad and deep knowledge of cybersecurity.
Yeah, the other item that was mentioned was about looking for students. One of the interesting things is the State Department has like a virtual federal service, and there's other organizations like that. They have these virtual projects that they say, hey, we need you to do analysis on data, do analysis on the data that's coming from, you know, somewhere in Central Africa, and you would do that, and that would allow you to do that from home for the students. There's a slew of various virtual items that can be done even before the pandemic. And then there's also opportunities, if you're a US citizen, you can do stuff with the federal government. You know, Department of State has stuff, the NSA, Department of Defense, and not just at the higher level, but also in what they call the Program Executive Office. So like aviation, enterprise information systems, transportation, all these particular organizations, they provide funding for internships. You would go to usajobs.gov, and then they have something called the Pathways program. So that's one thing. And then a number of organizations have places as well. So there are lots of resources available. It just depends on what perhaps is your ultimate goal, what Ray mentioned earlier. Like, what do you want to do? If you go to that website that I submitted, that cyberseek.org and Pathway, you can look at Pathways where it tells you like what type of programming skills, like what are the top 10 skills, the top certifications, what roles go into other roles. So I would advise anyone to go to cyberseek.org/pathway.html. It will provide you quite a bit.
So the next question looks like is from Tom.
Yeah.
On regarding COVID screenings and HIPAA.
I think that one we will discuss on our December 9th panel. So that is,
yeah. That's another whole panel discussion.
Okay.
Honestly.
Right.
That question is, we could go on for another hour talking about that.
Yeah. So
Fair enough. All right. It looks like there maybe one final question to Ray. Do we have these certifications or continuing education programs on this topic at IIT?
We talked about we have courses, certificate programs, or degrees that will inform you in every one of these areas, and certainly we do. Yes, and not only that, but through our professional learning, we actually have faculty who would be available, for example, that you could contract to come to the workplace if you wanted, once we're back in a workplace, mind you, to come to your workplace and conduct training or orientation, even within in a corporate setting. We're certainly willing to do that as well, and we have a lot of experience. We've done a lot of that in the past.
Okay. All right, everyone. Well, I think that's probably it. Let's wrap it up. Cassie, do you want to close us out?
Right. Yeah. Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Thank you, panel members.